They said you were the best in the Parsec.
Welcome to
Parsec Passion. A passion for when you've given up everything, even a sunrise, because you know you'll never see it. This is a podcast for people who don't want to see a sunrise, but instead see Cassian and Andor fighting those evil Imperials. My name's Bubba, and with me as always is someone who doesn't have lately. He has always. It's Catfish. Catfish, how you doing?
Oh, Bubba, I am delighted, but also saddened.
Oh, no.
Saddened because we have only one more episode of Andor. I guess I'm delighted because, like I said, I'm going to watch it all over again, even though there is plenty of stuff to watch on TV, Bubba. I just started picking up watching this crazy-ass Pennyworth. I can't even describe to you what the show's about. It's insane.
Better not be about somebody's butler.
It is, but it's about, so much more.
Season 1, episode 11 of Andor, Daughter of Ferrix. A fugitive once more, Cassian must make his next move before it's too late. We'll be answering your feedback. We'll be reading new podcast reviews from Apple Podcasts. Thank you so much. Our buddy Double M is going to talk about the music in this episode, and we're going to have our Bounty Hunter Guild battle. Catfish, let's get to it. What is your rating out of 10 for episode 11, Daughter of Ferrix?
Well, first I want to note that this description makes it sound like Cassian's in trouble. He says a fugitive once more. That is a positive change in his circumstances from last week, not a negative change. Bubba, I am going to give this 9 triple S's out of 10.
Whoa, triple S's, 9 out of 10. This is incredible. What could triple S stand for?
Well, some people are trying to ship Syril and Dedra. But I'm all here for the shipped Syril and Sergeant. Our boy, Linus Mosk, Linus Lickspittle. They're the best pairing on this show, and they are going to be back together again. We had a little tease of it, Bubba, but this is what the show has been building up to. The reuniting of Syril and Linus. Let's do this. I'm all in. We got a lot of pieces moving on this, Bubba, all over the place. It looks like we're all, for some reason, going to get back together on this S-hole of a planet, Ferrix. I don't know why. Everyone thinks that's where the action is for some unknown reason. I guess they were like, you know what? You know what's a great planet? There's a great planet. There's this beach planet. But you take one step out of line, you end up in jail for 6 years. Let's go to this asshole of a planet. Nobody cares what you do there. You can bang on pots. If you kick, they make you a permanent part of the infrastructure. Let's do this, Ferrix. We're all in. What about you, Bubba? What's your rating of this episode?
You went 9 out of 10. And let me say that former Sergeant Linus giving Syril a you up call, that should get it 9 out of 10. Exactly. But instead, I'm actually going to go the other way. I'm only going to give this 11 double B's out of 10.
Oh, double B's?
Well, double B stands for Babylon Berlin's out of 10.
Oh, man.
Now, I'm going to go far afield here, listeners, so just ride with me for a little bit.
Let's hear it.
It makes perfect sense that Cassian and Mon Mothma might never interact in season 1. And I think one of the greatest shows ever on television, The Wire, would have scenes where if these two characters really didn't go in the same circles and they didn't cross paths, there were characters on The Wire who would never cross paths across 5 seasons. So I think it does make perfect sense. But recently, showrunner Tony Gilroy of Andor did an interview where he was talking about a show we podcast about, a show that seemingly is as far away from Star Wars as you could get, Babylon Berlin. And so in some ways, yes, listeners, I'm going to do this just to make you watch Babylon Berlin and download our Babylon Berlin Babel podcast. Yes, this is cross promotion. But the one thing that's so true about both of them is they're both went really wide, dozens of characters with dozens of motives. Babylon Berlin, it was actually 16 episodes where finally they all start coming together towards one event. In Babylon Berlin, everybody's pointed towards a train, and it builds, everybody's far or wide, and then they build towards a train. Here in Andor, All these characters have gone far, and then, like you're saying, they're suddenly all coming back to Ferrix. It's all going to go down next week in Ferrix, of course, except Mon Mothma's story, but that's fine. But the one thing that I would say about Babylon Berlin, which Tony Gilroy talked about as a bit of an inspiration for Andor, he talked about what an incredible scope Babylon Berlin had, just like Andor has a great scope. But Babylon Berlin has its own Syril character. It's this character by the name of Neeson. And Neeson and Syril are cosmic soulmates across TV characters. But the one thing Babylon Berlin would never do, it would never sideline Neeson for as many episodes as this show has really sidelined Syril. And so I love Syril every time he's on screen. I think he's great. But this show has sidelined him. And so the fact that in this episode, I can see where it's going. I'm getting very excited about getting to Ferrix and seeing all these storylines come together in explosive action. But there's still a part of me that's like, let's get to it. On Babylon Berlin, again, I say it took 16 episodes for everybody to converge on this train car. But what was great is about episode 8, about the halfway point, you realized, oh, wait a minute, all these storylines are going to converge on the train car. And so it kind of allowed the audience to really get excited for, ooh, this is coming, this is coming, this is coming, this is coming. We didn't realize, maybe you did, maybe we should have, that everybody would be converging on Ferrix really until maybe, if you're honest, the last episode where the spy was on Maarva. And so I think they could have built the anticipation up like I think Babylon Berlin did well. The fact that this show doesn't feel like a giant boulder rolling downhill at times, I'm going to hold that against it. There's a whole lot in this episode I love, and I'm going to celebrate that. But at the end of this episode, I was still like, I should be like, oh, my Lord, I'm on the boulder rolling downhill, where I still feel like I'm waiting for the boulder to catch up to me. So maybe that makes sense. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe you're like Bubba for that low score. I'm never going to watch Babylon Berlin or download the Babylon Berlin podcast. I deserve your help.
I gave it a high score. And Bubba, I also have a Babylon Berlin reference.
There we go.
Tonight. I'm very excited.
So good.
You are going to hate it. And that's probably my favorite thing about it.
Well, hey, we've given our thoughts. We always love to say, who cares what Catfish thinks? And also, who cares what I think? Write to us and tell us what you think. If you're watching this on YouTube, go down in those comments. You set us straight about what's wonderful about this episode. If you're listening to the audio podcast, we do want reviews and 5-star ratings if you could. But we also just want to talk to you. We want you to be part of our crew. Cassian's got a crew. We want you to be part of our Parsec Passion Podcast crew. So reach out to us, facebook.com/PHQ, Twitter and Instagram @PHQ. Catfish, let's get into it. And I'm going to start the quick hits this week with a question that seems ridiculous. But the first quick hit question, is Maarva really dead, or is this a fake out? I'll go first since I created this ridiculous question. Yes, Maarva's dead. But there's so much of me that thinks, wait a minute. A couple episodes ago, Maarva was talking about, I'm going in those tunnels underneath the hotel / where the Empire is based on Ferrix. And I'm thinking, that has to lead somewhere. I thought Maarva, her story was going out with a bang, not a whimper. Even though she's dead, and I'm willing to admit she's dead, there's a part of me that's like, story, you can't be doing this to me. She can't be dead. So am I crazy? Yes, I'm crazy. But somehow, for some reason, I really had a hard time accepting that Maarva was dead. So what do you think about that thought?
I didn't know that you were, I saw you put this in the notes, but I didn't know that you were really, that you were not as serious about this as you seem to be. So I was like, you always figure things out before me. So I really thought you were serious because I didn't know you were going to equivocate like this. So I'm like, all right, hold on. So she has not been doing well. There's no good reason for the fake out. And I don't think they could keep the secret anyway. So my judgment was she gone. But she gone. To go along with your thought process here, because again, you a lot of times you come up with something and I'm like, I never even thought of that. And then you turn out to be right. And it's horrible. And I have feelings of self-doubt and I walk around with my head hung down. Can you think of any good reasons why they would say she is dead?
The story I thought the show was telling me is that Maarva, remember, had been unwilling to go down Rick's road anymore. But now, what happened on Aldhani almost gave her life back. She could march down Rick's Road. She could look at that tunnel underneath the Imperial headquarters and think, yeah, I need to take these jerks out. This was the story to me of somebody who had lost their spirit to fight due to the tragedy of her husband, Clem, and was almost reborn and would have, would start fighting. And it feels like when they said, oh my goodness, Maarva's dead, it felt like she didn't get that chance. She wanted to start fighting and she didn't get that chance. And maybe that's the emotional beat the story was trying to tell me. Once again, what I thought the story had been telling me is this is somebody who her whole life, because of what had happened to Clem, had almost been put on hold and her spirits had been drained in some ways. But seeing that somebody could stick it to these guys gave her life. And I thought that was going to be an active life as opposed to what it feels like. It feels like it was really just an internal, hey, I've got my spirit back. And so that's what I thought the show was telling me.
So are you going to feel cheated? Are you going to feel that maybe it's just a little bit cheap if her death is just the only thing her death is for is to get everybody back? Because we saw Cassian's like, tell her I'm okay. I'll come by later on. So obviously he wasn't going to go back and pick her up. So will you feel like it's cheap if all this happened and then she dies peacefully and the only reason she dies is so that we can get everybody there?
My thought would be, why talk about the tunnels under the, I guess it's foreshadowing for somebody else using these tunnels, maybe even Cassian himself using these tunnels underneath the hotel where the Empire's base is. It was really about her spirit, where I thought it would be an active rebirth. So this is on me. And so what I'm saying is I was watching this show going, well, she can't be dead. No, she can't be dead. What about the thing she was talking about? And now it was only, deeper into the show when I realized, oh, this was about her spiritual.
You reluctantly I mean, Bubba, again, you did make me think about it at the time. I was like, why was I can't figure out why. So, all right. So you've agreed with me. Thank you. All right, Bubba, here's my silly quick hit. What is the minimum wage on Ferrix? And do they, like a lot of states in the United States, do they allow restaurants to pay wait staff less than minimum wage because they're getting tips?
Anytime Cinta gets a tip there at the cafe, they bang on the pipes like it's an Empire Tech. Hey, I got a $1 tip. Ding, 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 ding. That is an interesting thing. How about this? Cinta was part of a crew that stole all those credits, right? There were hundreds of thousands of credits taken. Do you think she has any? Because remember, the credit ship left and the credit ship flew away and she was left on Aldhani. So is this like, not only do you have to watch for Andor and take him out if he comes back, but we can't have you spreading that stolen money around, so you're going to live off tips. I mean, that's tough.
I think it's actually a smart move, as someone who is either serving drinks or food, you get to kind of overhear people talking, you get to hear scuttlebutt, but it really is kind of a come down after stealing all that money to be someone like, my bantha milk is too warm. Take it back.
How about this? Cinta, my name is Spy. You wrote Spee. What's going on here?
I mean, my tip for Cinta would be stay away from anybody who has 2 consonants ending their first name.
Oh, poor Tim. We'll never forget you, Tim. Now, Catfish, I was a bit down on this episode. There was so much I liked. And one thing that I liked didn't really even happen on the episode, but I saw it. Syril and Dedra are going to be together next week for this funeral. I love it. So I thought right here at the top, let's go ahead. Let's use our creative brains. Always talk about how I sold a screenplay that got made into a motion picture. That was really not that good. Ran late at night on cable on anyway, so I did sell it. So I thought, okay, let me use my creative brain and I'll write a big romantic scene between Syril and Dedra. So there we go. Here's next week's episode. You ready? Syril sees Dedra in trouble. She's surrounded by rebels without a weapon. When he steps up to her with his private box and he pulls out a special brick, he hands it to the woman he loves. This brick used to be Maarva. Dedra uses Syril's brick to crush some rebel scum. Their eyes meet. Nothing between their bodies, their quivering bodies, but a dead rebel. The music swells. Syril's collar rises. Dedra's hands run down his piping.
Mm-hmm.
Syril pulls her close and he says, I'm an Imperial in the streets and a Wookiee between the sheets.
Oh, damn.
Then
you know
suddenly,
what, Bubba?
Meow.
You know, if anybody has any questions why when they went to download this podcast that it had an E for explicit, that was it right there. That was it. Bubba, this is, to me, Syril and Linus Lickspittle erasure. Because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. What I'm envisioning is when they meet. When they meet, and Linus is like, oh, Syril, the magic is back. You look magnificent. Magnificent. And then Cyril's like, well, hello, Linus. Oh, such inspiring words you give me. Syril, your collar is as strong as your heart, and your hair is as glorious as your dedication to the Alliance. I'm talking about the Imperial Alliance, not the dirty rebel alliance, but you magnificent bastard. God, I just want to run my hands at your collar that's rising and your piping is so perfect. It's perfect piping.
Man, Syril Sargent this holiday season on the Hallmark Channel.
So I couldn't tell you how happy I was to see. I mean, as bad as things have gotten for Syril, it's worse for Linus, but he is still like, there's one person I can use to ascend the ladder. This poor bastard Syril. It was amazing, Bubba. Amazing.
It was amazing. All right, our final quick hit. We've done it every week. Cassian's Sister of the Week. Just like Maarva's death, I'm throwing in the dowel. I'm going to change the segment name to Where the Blank is Cassian's Sister. She's not in these episodes. I've been like, where is she? Why bring up Cassian's sister if she has nothing to do with the story? Where is she? She's on a planet yet to be named. That's all I can say. She's not in these episodes. I throw in the towel on Cassian's Sister of the Week. Any thoughts on this, Catfish?
Yeah, I got two thoughts, Bubba. Well, one thought, two words. She gone.
Did she get bricked?
She got bricked. She didn't even get bricked. She was on this other planet. She got tiled.
Oh, no. Oh, no. Brick. She got mortared. Oh, no.
Oh, man.
Hey, you know what? Before we go any further, let's talk about some Andor news, Catfish. This is incredible.
I love
Way
it.
back, if you've been listening to the Parsec Passion podcast since we launched it, number one, we apologize. But number two, thank you so much for listening. And way back when The Mandalorian debuted, we saw The Mandalorian, and I went, oh, look at the episode length. This is perfect. If you added commercials to this, it'd be about an hour, and Disney could put this on ABC over Thanksgiving to drive subscribers to Disney+. Of course, I was completely wrong. Disney didn't plan to run The Mandalorian's first episode on ABC. It didn't happen at all. Flash forward 3 years, and the news is out, Catfish. The first 2 episodes of Andor are going to be on ABC, American Broadcasting Company here in the United States, free to everybody, on November 23rd at 9 p.m. And it's going to be a 2-hour show with commercials and stuff. Then the next day, it's going to be on the cable channel FX. Then the day after that, it's going to be on the cable channel Freeform. And then the whole Thanksgiving weekend and the next week, it's going to be available on the Hulu platform. This is incredible, Catfish. Any thoughts about a streaming show moving to cable and free TV?
I hate to say this, but this is why sometimes I follow your lead when you're like, is Maarva really dead? This is a brilliant Bubba idea, and they should have done it before. It's funny because it feels like The Mandalorian would have gotten more love. My understanding is, and maybe I'm wrong, that Andor isn't doing as well as some of the other shows have done. I think it's an amazing show, and I'm glad that they're putting it up there. But maybe if they started this 2 years ago and they'd done it with every show, the stock wouldn't be tanking the way it is right now for Disney.
JPEG. Listeners, what do you think? I've gone ahead and set up my DVR. Yes, I still have cable to record it. I want to see how it's going to work as a TV show. I want to see where they're going to place the commercials in these first 2 episodes. I'm kind of interested in it like that. Now, what is important to note for everybody watching this or listening to this podcast now or in the future is what's fascinating is it's going to run on free TV here in the United States, ABC, on the day the last episode comes out. So the day the streamer has the very last episode of Andor coming out, that night, they're going to have the first 2 episodes available on free TV. So it'll be interesting. I wonder how many people will watch. You know, you would think if you're a big Star Wars fan, you probably have Disney Plus.
Here's what I wonder, Bubba.
Yeah.
After the first 2 episodes, we're like, all right.
Right.
And then after the 3rd episode, we're like, yes, you completed the story. So I wonder how people are going to feel if they're going to get what I like to call blue balls, only seeing the first 2 episodes of Andor.
Right. Well, because of the episode length, and I assume on ABC you do need to run commercials, it would have taken like 3 hours of content maybe to show all 3. And so I just think ABC wasn't willing to do it. Who knows? Listeners,
well, if they want to do it as I mean,
do it on a Sunday night then, right?
No, to do it on a night when people aren't doing stuff, but show all 3 and don't show commercials. You really need to make money off of this? You're trying to drive people to your Disney Plus.
I don't know. I think you've got a good thought. I think you could have done it maybe Thanksgiving night, but then maybe you're opposite football. You know, it's tough to see. It'll be interesting to see if it succeeds. Listeners, if you're in the United States, are you going to watch it and see how it does, even though you've already seen those first 2? Let's find out. And let's not wait any longer and dive into what you consider a 9 out of 10 episode, Catfish. And so last week we saw a bunch of prisoners jumping off, swimming to freedom, and for whatever reason, they all decided to split up. We see Melshi, this character named Melshi, and Cassian, and they're hanging to a cliff as a ship flies overhead. And this is crazy. Like, there was no plan. I keep mentioning, they didn't even have shoes, Catfish. They're on this remote planet, and you're walking around hanging off cliffs without shoes? Wait.
Well, we got to deal with Double M, Bubba.
The Double M.
Yeah, Maladroit Melshi. He needs to quit whining about his hands. I can't feel my hands. I can't use my hands, whatever. I mean,
get a mani-pedi.
Exactly. Toughen up. You didn't toughen up in prison. I mean, they were doing all that. They were putting stuff together with their hands all day. You'd think they would have built up some strength.
Nah. Now, what did you think about these I'm going to hopefully pronounce this correctly, the native Narkinians who are hanging out near a watering hole? They have a little ship, a quad jumper, which we've seen before in various Star Wars properties. Melshi and Cassian, they're going to steal it. The native Narkinians, they've got Aquanet. This is awesome. I love it. Our heroes are caught.
But I mean, they're talking about what to do, and then Melshi just runs towards the ship with no plan. I don't know how this guy survived to make it to eventually die in Rogue One, but I assume it's a lot of just hanging on to Andor's coattails. These guys I found to be hilarious. Well, at least the one that talked. The other one who appeared to have like a claw for one hand and some sort of Ash versus the Evil Dead implement in the other hand. He didn't talk that much, but the guy who talked was great and very funny. And, you know, Bubba, of course, the first thing I thought of is I need to go to IMDb to figure out which famous people they got to do this. Wasn't listed so far on IMDb, but I would prefer they not use famous people. That's just me.
Yeah, I'm with you. And call me crazy. Their kind of dialect where they're like, Entusi, better fishing on land. Hey, Freedy, scob the Empire. To me, it was almost like they were saying filthy hobbitses. Like, good word, guys.
Yeah. It's great. It was funny, and I still didn't quite understand in the end how they agreed to, like, the guys were like, no, we're prisoners. Oh, okay, we'll let you go and take that ship instead of getting the 2,000 for you. Gonna hand wave that one, I guess.
Well, I thought they all got on the ship, and they're like, where do you want to go? We'll fly you there because we hate the Empire. Okay. The Empire kills the water, destroys the water. This is David Byrne, talking head. Kills the water, destroys the water.
Okay. So I didn't get that these guys got to ride off planet.
Right, and I would say that, yes, you've escaped prison, you want to get to freedom, but being stuck in that small ship with these two guys all the way to Neamos would be like, oh boy, not fun. But hey, let's go to Neamos next. It's the what I like to call the Panama City of planets. Cassian breaks into his old hotel room. He finds his credits, a blaster, and of course, most importantly, Nemec's manifesto. It lives.
Oh, Catfish. Thank God that is still around to inspire the masses, Bubba.
Cassian, not being too smart. You just broke out of prison. You've just broke into a hotel room. You thank goodness you didn't get caught. But then he goes to what looks like a payphone, and he calls Ferrix to find out about his adoptive, mother Maarva. And dude, that's not safe. He keeps saying, no names, no names. Dude, are you crazy? But what was even crazier is suddenly Melshi and Cassian split up. We know these two guys are going to be buddies in Rogue One, which is about 5 years down the timeline from now. But why not stick together? Melshi's joined the cause. He's like, listen, we got to tell people what was happening in that prison. And Cassian is just like, yeah, we do. No, you do. Later, buddy. What did you think about that?
I wouldn't want to carry around Melshi on my back either, Bubba. I got you out of there. I carried your ass. Good luck, my friend. Good luck.
Au revoir, Melshi. Till we meet again. All right, why not go to Luthen next? Because he's kind of on his own. He goes to see Saw Gerrera, and he's pretty much going to tell Saw Gerrera, yeah, you know how the last time I was here, I wanted you to help with this one guy's attack on Spellhouse, Anton Krieger's? Well, guess what? You're not going to help Krieger. We're giving him up. We're letting the ISB kill him and his 30 men. Right.
I feel like this is requires a very delicate explanation, right? Like, Saw's like, what about this? No, we don't really have time. We're ready to go now. Well, but it's not a good one. Oh, all right. I sold Krieger down the river. And then Saw's predictably like, oh, so would you sell me down the river? And he's like, nah, I got better use for you.
No, mainly because you could give me up. If you couldn't give me up, yes, I'd tell you.
Right, exactly. You know who I am.
What I look like. So nice knowing you, Anton Krieger. Whoa.
Oh, man. And then Saw's like, oh, you got inside men everywhere. Inside men here, inside men there. I want to know who it is. Who's my inside man here? And Luthen's like, it's Tubes over here. It's your buddy Tubes. And Tubes is like, what the hell did you draw me into this for? What's going on?
The usual suspects of things. Who's my inside man? Oh, Tubes is standing here. It's
yeah, right.
Who's the
it's
one
a Reservoir Dogs.
Who's
the cop?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Right. And so then Luthen pulls a gun on Saw. I mean, things have gone haywire.
Oh, yeah.
And Saw says, this is not going to go well for you. And Luthen's like, I just want you to understand. And Saw takes a minute. He's like, okay, I guess you're right. Everything's going to be fine. All right, well, this is war. And, although he does soft pedal it a little bit, I noticed Luthen does.
What do you mean?
The previous casualties were said to be 50. Luthen soft pedals that down to 30.
Right. No more than 30. Wait, did I say 30? No more 30, than 15 men.
30 to 50. No, I think he said 50 before.
Yeah, that's he did why say 50 before. He said 50 to the ISB plant or
somewhere between 30 and 3,000 will die. And then so Luthen's flying back.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's having a very veiled conversation with Clea that is about an art piece, but clearly not about an art piece at all. And Bubba, this is where you're going to need to tell me exactly what they're talking about. They're being very obvious, but not obvious enough that Catfish could get it. Are they talking about Andor? Are they talking about something else?
It's about Andor. It's about like, oh, we've got to get that piece. Oh, well, there's another buyer, meaning the Empire, who's out to get that piece. Oh, I really think we need to take care of him. And I thought it was wonderful code.
Is it that Luthen needs to get him because he also can identify Luthen? Is that what it is? He doesn't need Cassian. He doesn't think he needs Cassian for anything else. He's just a dangling thread that could cause him trouble.
I think that's what we're supposed to think. There's a part of me that wonders if Luthen ever saw that Cassian returned his Kyber crystal, because I'm not sure we saw that. There's a part of me that thinks we're supposed to think Luthen's like, yeah, take care of this Cassian. But there's another part of me that Luthen may think, maybe this is a tool that I could use, since he did come through. He really did come through on the Altani job, and he didn't steal all the credits, right? He literally took what he said he would take.
You know what? When it comes down to where people stand in what I like to call the double L.
Double L.
Yeah, the Luthen ledger. I think he's in the debit category, not the credit category. So now this is another thing you have to explain to me.
Okay.
All right. So his ship is caught by an Imperial scanner. They're like, this is where there's a funny bit where he's like, well, this is where pirates hang out. And he's like, oh, I'll watch out. But shouldn't this be, Bubba, he's in exactly the right business to be almost anywhere. He is an arch dealer finding all sorts of hard to find things. So
exactly
if he doesn't have a good cover as an arch dealer, what is he doing? That should be. I don't understand why he doesn't just have a good registration, have a good excuse for what he's doing.
I think what the show would want us to think is that how did Andor end up in that prison? He wasn't doing anything. He was just, in the wrong place at the wrong time. I think maybe Luthen realizes, hey, I'm in the wrong place at the wrong time. The Empire even said, hey, his codes check out. He's not a criminal. And the Imperial guy was like, you know what? But this will be good practice. And so I think he probably knows that he could get Andor. He could get Cassian and thrown into prison.
All right. Well, that makes sense to me. I guess I just assumed that he has, his only connection is Mon Mothma. I would assume that he's built up other good connections with what he deals to people, so that he could be able to drop a name. That's all. I understand completely. Right. I understand completely what you're saying. It still jarred me a little bit, but what you're saying is right.
I would imagine up to. Shoot, is it poured? It's the poured policy. I would think up to the poured policy, you would be great doing your strategy of, hey, I am an antique stealer. I'm going to end up in all sorts of crazy places. Empire, give me some slack. But I think post poured, he's making the right move. And once again, I was very tough on this episode. But when it's quite obvious that Luthen's like, I'm not going out like that. I loved it, baby. I loved it when the droid on the ship is like countermeasures charging. I'm like, oh hell yes, let's F things up, baby. I am ready to take this them
up. I mean, whatever he had, they were like, how could he have that on that ship? They were not prepared for the ass whooping that Luthen laid on them.
And if this show suddenly becomes Smokey and the Bandit with Luthen as the bandit, I'm eastbound and down. I'm outer rim, down and bound. I'm ready for it. I loved it. I love them. They're like, because a tractor beam, it grabs you and it pulls you in. So he's like, oh, you'll grab me and pull me in? Well, let me throw some shards up that are going to F you up that you won't be able to control because they're so small. Eat it. Wonderful.
I love it.
Wonderful. Good work, Luthen.
All right, Bubba. Well, I think even though Ferrix is where everybody's going to end up next week, let's talk about Ferrix as our penultimate location tonight, because what happened on Coruscant was my favorites of everything.
I agree with you. So Brasso, who we've seen is a buddy of Bix and Cassian since the very first episode, he's there, and a character I think we met for the first time last week named Jez. They're moving Maarva out. She's dead. And once again, I was tough on this episode, but let me talk about all the things that it did so well. B2 Emo as the droid who couldn't cope. That was brilliant. It was wonderful. It was really sad. It was like, oh man,
it really was sad. This poor guy's not going to get along, and I don't care if his feelings are programmed. He showed more true emotion in those few minutes than I have in the last 5 years, Bubba.
What do you think happens to a droid when its owner passes on and it's not, you would think this is going to sound cold. It's going to be property that would go maybe in a will or pass down, but Maarva doesn't have anybody pass him down to. So I hope B2 gets a good home with Brazos. Let's go, B2.
First dibs. First dibs on Emo. The first person to give him a warm cup of tea, he'll go with him.
Well, he could get a warm cup of tea from Cinto. You think he and Cinto
hell yeah. Poor Cinto. She's got to get a job in this crap-ass town, but she's able to spy everyone, basically. The long-distance calls going out of Ferrix this episode were just, the traffic was amazing. Everybody is on the horn. I'm surprised at one point we didn't just see a long line. It could have been Linus, could have been Cinta, could have been a whole bunch of people.
Now the Imperials there who are holding Bix, they're saying, listen, they're going to want a funeral because she is a daughter of Ferrix. In a typical funeral, it's I assume a procession. They're going to close Rick's Road. And since the Empire's been in charge of Ferrix, they're like, you don't do this, losers. We're in charge here, not you. But Dedra's plan is, hey, she wants to catch Cassian. She's like, let him have that funeral. You don't think this would be obvious to everybody on Ferrix that, oh, wait a minute, suddenly Maarva gets a funeral, nobody else does? What do you think of Dedra's plan here, Catfish?
It's a good plan only if the person that has escaped from jail and basically committed two of the most infamous acts against the Imperials in the last probably 200 years. Only if that guy is dumb enough to actually go home for it.
No. Well, he's got to, his mom's going to be bricked.
Yeah, listen, everybody wants to. I wonder if they have the spot in the wall, and then he gets to put it in, and then everybody comes and gets put a little mortar on it.
Aww.
Amazing.
Now, once again, there is this spy. It's quite obvious there's a spy for the Empire. Like, if you're the spy, you've got to do a better job of blending in, my dude. He's calling Brazos the big man. I think this is ridiculous. They're not doing a good job. And then Bix. Dedra was the one who said, keep Bix alive.
Keep hope alive.
Right. They drag her in there, and they show her a hologram of Anton Krieger because they want to know if he's Axis. What I would wonder, and the show didn't really answer this, is with that Dr. Gorst stuff, could she lie and say, yes, that's Axis? Or if she says, yes, that's Axis, do they kill her because they think they don't need her anymore? What do you think? What is Bix's move here, if anything?
Gorst was overselling how horrible the sounds were if they are actually expecting she'll be able to give them an answer, because Gorst made it sound like she would go crazy out of her mind, a babbling idiot in a very short period of time. And I would remind Gorst, especially when you're dealing with people who expect results, to underpromise and overdeliver. And I feel like he didn't do that in this case if she still has any kind of mind left.
Hold on. That's at your current job. At your current job, you underpromise, overdeliver. On Gorst's LinkedIn page, 100% of the truth, 100% of the time. Never failed. Go get that good new job on LinkedIn, Gorst.
And then we see the other end of the conversation. The transmission comes in. Cassian trying to get a message to Maarva. I mean, he's like, shh, don't say my name. We really need to keep this short, but there's a lot of BS going on. And then, Bubba, this happens.
Let's hear it.
Cassian says, tell her I'll get back as soon as I can. Can you remember that? Yeah. I have to repeat one of my favorite lines from The Big Lebowski. He says, we may be bereaved, but we're not saps. I mean, yes, I can remember your uncomplicated rote message, you idiot. Like, it's not like where something is buried. It's, I love you. I miss you. I'll see you again. I hope you're proud of me. Yes.
Yeah, but who said it? I can't remember the person's name. They didn't say it. Are you excited for the big blow up that's going to happen at Maarva's funeral next week, Catfish?
I assume this will be exciting. I just don't. I mean, really. It boggles my mind to think that Cassian's going to show up just to see her new form as a brick. considering
it's Maarva's memorial, Catfish.
I mean, well, let me think, but let me think. Let's think of this through. Let's just think this through. So he knows that he escaped Ferrix, luckily and with much help. Now, he may not know that they've identified him as doing other things like killing those two dudes, but he's got to know Ferrix is the last place he should be, right? Am I missing something, Bubba? Or does he know,
I'm pretty sure the last time he was on Ferrix on that brief run-through after the Aldhani job, he knows the Empire's there. It's not a corpo town anymore. It's being run by the Empire. I'm pretty sure he knows that. So,
all right.
Who does Cassian care about? He cares about himself. He's always looking out for number one. But besides that, it feels like he's got Bix, Brazos, and B, and his mom. So I guess 3 people in a droid. And so what is life worth living if you can't be there for the people you care about? So
do you think he's included
go
Bix again?
Somehow?
Because Tim is out of the picture? You think he got a shot with Bix?
Well, how about this? What if he realizes I can't go back for Maarva's memorial, but he finds out that Bix is being brainwashed and tortured? You wouldn't go. You're responsible, or you would assume you're responsible. You don't think if I was being brainwashed and tortured because of my association with you, you wouldn't try to rescue me?
Well, that all depends. I mean, did you essentially brainwash and torture yourself by dumping me for Tim?
Well, yes. Listen, Tim was free to podcast on 1899, the new Netflix drama from the Greatest from Dark.
So I'm just saying, if you've already tortured yourself by dropping me, amazing Cassian, the Beach Boy, who's got all the credits, then yeah, you deserve what you get.
Listeners, are you excited about this Maarva memorial we're going to get next week? What do you want to see in it outside of our boy Syril? And let's go to the capital city of Coruscant, Catfish.
Yes, my favorite place.
What did you think about this very first scene in Coruscant? Clea and Vel. We've seen one scene of them together before, and they're on the same side, but they're never seemingly on the same side. You know what I mean? One thing I noticed about the art direction of this antiquity shop is it's all gray. There's like no color in there, and maybe that's, there's the light of the Jedi and the dark of the dark side. And so naturally, Luthen's shop would be all gray, but the only color in the whole shop seems to be Clea's dark blue tunic. She and Vela still don't get along. I love this exchange where Vel was like, I gave him old Hani. What have you done for him lately? Clea, I don't have lately. I have always. Mike dropped. But even Vel is there because she must be talking to Cinta to let Clea know Maarva's dead. Cassian's mother is dead. What do you think? Who's right in this?
They're both putting their lives on the line. I don't know why they have this antagonism toward each other. Maybe it's because, Clea could be like, well, it doesn't matter to you. You can always go back to your fancy life. But Vel is putting her fancy life at risk.
No, exactly.
Clea not. So, yeah.
And so let's follow.
They're just fighting each other to see who can get the best smile from Luthen. Smile of approval, and a shiver went down their necks.
Okay, speaking of shiver going down your neck, what did you think of this mantra that Lita and all the other Chandrilan young women are doing? Mon Mothma listens to it, and she has a look on her face like, I have raised a Mormon. What is going on here? Braided
I
in
don't
the
know.
Trust. The old ways hold us. Braided in the knot, in the binding. Braided in trust. Yielding in acceptance. Safe in the knot. Dude, this is the Branch Davidian. This is the Branch Davidian.
Or is it the Nazi youth?
You've got a daughter, a teenage daughter, who rebels, not by truly rebelling, but rebelling back to the Chandrilan customs that her mom is trying to raise her away from. This is
right. And the funny thing is that our boy Evil Paris doesn't even really care.
No, I love that Mon says, even Perrin's not really this nutty about all this stuff. This is crazy. Does that give her the green light? Because this is interesting. Finally, here in the penultimate episode, they spell out how much trouble Mon Mothma is in, and she is in a lot of trouble. She took 400,000 credits, and gave them to Luthen, gave them to the cause. No big deal. But suddenly the Imperials are like, I want to look at everybody's accounts. How is she going to, hide this? How is she going to show this if you don't have a choice? And this is like probably not just your life, but, Perrin and your daughter could be in deep doo too. So I don't almost think she has a choice. She's got to give Lita up to this money launderer's kid. Don't you? I mean, this is over.
Now, I noticed here in the notes, you said, you were phrasing kind of differently. You said she's got to sell Lita. And then my question was, how are they going to get the other 390,000 credits? Zing.
Let me see. Hold on. Let me page Tim to see if he can do a podcast on Andor.
Now, Bubba.
2 M's, yeah.
We have got, I promise this, we got Babylon Berlin coming up. So I'd like to use a quote from Babylon Berlin to describe Leda.
Oh, let's hear it.
She's the worst.
Yes. So okay. Has Leda
truly a bratwurst?
Has Leda officially passed Perrin as the worst? I almost want to say yes. I think in some ways she has. This is crazy.
Oh man, Perrin's out there living his best life.
I do want to say that everybody has their own quirks, but Leda, as almost brainwashed she is with these Chandrillan customs, she does seem to really have a fondness for her Aunt Vel, who obviously, because Vel's not married, broke many of these Chandrillan customs. So it's I want to follow this rigid way of life, but I also love the aunt who completely didn't follow him. So.
All right, well, then sounds to me like she'll be the one taking Vel down as well as her mom. Bubba, let's get to it. I can't hold it longer. We see Syril's mom. Hell yes. Edie is so excited. She wakes him up because there's a call. And who is it? It is our boy,
I never thought we'd see him again. This is incredible.
So
incredible.
Excited. He's got some information. He found out that Andor's mom passed away and that he might show up at the funeral. There's a lot of confusing stuff going on, but this sends Syril into action. And then not only does it do that, but it spurs I usually try to hold it, Bubba, but I cannot.
Okay.
My favorite line of the episode.
Your Mandolicisious line?
This is it. I'm sorry. I never spoil it, but it is so good. The mystery of your former triumphs have been vanquished. I can sleep peacefully now. Bubba, that is what I call a 5-fire emoji burn. Fire, 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 fire.
Now, Syril waits until Edie, his mother, leaves.
Yeah.
Then he goes, I'm pretty sure, to his private box. But when I first saw it, I thought, is this Edie's box? But no, I'm pretty sure it's his box. He's gathering up some credits. He's going to take some time off and go to Ferrix. How in the world is Syril going to screw this up? I mean, literally, Cassian's coming right there, Syril. How are you going to screw this up? I love it, love it, love it. It does get me very excited for next week.
Oh, man. I mean, hey, listen. You can't just give me a half bite at the apple. Don't just give me Syril. I need to see the love triangle between Syril, Dedra, and Linus. So exciting.
No, man. Bros before Dedras. Okay, well,
Bubba, that's the episode. Holy cow.
That is the episode. Listeners, what did you think of this episode? Yeah, the more I talk about it, I shouldn't have gone as low as 7 out of 10, but that'll set me up for a real great episode next week. What is your rating? Catfish, we already heard your Mandolicisious line of the episode. So I'll go ahead and say mine, which yours is kind of funny and badass. Mine was just wonderful fun of the native Narkinians laughing at these 2 nerf herders getting caught in their net. Love it, love it, love it. That's my Mandolicisious line of the episode.
It's very good. Very good. Well, Bubba,
yeah.
Now we have, as our loyal listeners know, next, following the Mandolicisious line, is the quadruple M. That's right, Matt Murdock's musical Manalysis. Let's hear it tonight. Some of our listeners, Bubba.
Matt here. Never, ever underestimate the power of a string quartet. Not necessarily the volume power or the overpowering power, but the emotional power of a string quartet. First of all, I've mentioned before how stringed instruments tend to feel more emotional, more human. Why? Because they're typically more expressive. You can bend notes. You can move your fingers as the strings did at about the 37-minute mark when playing just solid chords to give them emotional motion. It's almost the effect of tremoling. In fact, that type of inflection is called tremolo. This is one thing that makes this particular version of the Andor main theme, as Cassian is receiving the news about his mom's death, emotional. And because a quartet, or maybe a quintet, is such a small ensemble, it also gives it an intimacy. This is a moment for Andor alone. Notice he doesn't share. It's a very personal moment, and a string quartet can make things very personal. It gives this theme a whole different kind of feel to it, rather than the somewhat tense yet victorious version when Luthen is getting away from the Imperials, right? And that's just in the scene right before. These are some of the things that I cite as to why timbre is so important. When Luthen's getting away, it's a bigger ensemble, or at least a bigger sounding ensemble, probably supplemented by synths there as well. Nonetheless, this one feels personal, emotional, and that's because of the instrumentation, the timbres that were selected, and the performance. I love Ramin Djawadi's music so much in House of the Dragon and in Game of Thrones because he uses the expressiveness of a cello so well. Here, you also hear a cello taking this predominant role that's almost kind of like this arpeggio or counter figure that's going on against the melody as it develops. But there are some interesting things harmonically going on as well. So let me play the opening of this for you with a piano sound, so it won't have those tremolos that make you feel the emotion. But the harmony also helps to imply the emotion as well, specifically because of the way that what I call the hope chord is delayed, not emphasized, or the root of that chord is not emphasized. I'll explain a little bit more here in a second, but first, just listen to this. Again, when you hear it on the piano, it's not nearly as emotional as when you hear the strings play it, right? When you hear a small personal string quartet play it because of the timbre. But let's focus on a couple of the harmonic things that are happening here. I mentioned before that the hope chord is delayed. I'm using air quotes as I say this. When part of the melody resolves to this chord that feels hopeful, more triumphant, that's a major chord, right? And usually we have that in most versions of this theme. But there are times when Bottrell actually removes the bass note of that chord and he replaces it with another note. Actually, it's part of the chord, the note that he uses, but what it does is it suspends the resolution to make you feel like it's not really major. It feels like it's minor. Normally, the melody resolves like this. But if you'll notice in that first phrase that I played of this melody, that bottom note didn't happen right away in that second chord. Instead, he held on to a note that was part of another chord before resolving it up. And that's what I mean by delaying the hope chord. The hope is still there, sort of, because they're coming up with a plan to tell everybody what's happened, but it's delayed by Cassian still trying to digest the information that his mother has died. It's a brilliant harmonic representation, a musical narrative of what's going on with Andor at that moment. The other thing to look at is the counterline here that I mentioned before, played in the cello. This swooping line that has this rhythm that pulses against the drawn-out, very emotionally tremoloed chords is key here, because the first time, when it first appears, it has this big jump in between it, this dipping sensation. It's a high note, then a low note, then a high note, then a high note, then a low note, then a high note. And remember, the bigger jumps, or sometimes the direction that these jumps go, gives an indication of emotion just as much as the harmony does. Rhythm comes into play with the cello as well, because at first we just had this steady pulse. Now there are pauses after the second note of each phrase, and the direction that they go is up, but they come from a place that doesn't really fit the chord and then resolves to it. Again, delaying the hope. And in the second part of that, the cello starts a little lower and moves up to just get into position, but the chord feels like it's struggling to resolve. And again, this is the unsteadiness of Cassian trying to digest this while they make a plan. Excellently done. Back to Bubba and Catfish.
Oh, Bubba, like a string quartet, I am more emotional and human than you.
Not at all. Mm-hmm. They keep adding layers to this score. And it's not a traditional Star Wars John Williams type score, but I do really love the score. And that's one of the reasons why I love Matt talking about it on this wonderful segment of Matt's musical analysis. Catfish.
We got to do the Bounty Hunter Guild battle. Who wins the puck, Bubba? So here's my question to you.
Let's hear it.
Unless you have one yourself. My question to you is, you have been complaining a lot in this show. Not enough aliens. Not enough robots. Do you really feel like you are missing out, that this feels less like the Star Wars universe because we're not getting as much of those things?
If you watch Star Wars A New Hope, Lucas, this was a low-budget movie he made back in the mid-'70s. And so there really weren't many actual aliens in Star Wars A New Hope. If you watch Empire Strikes Back, yes, Yoda was a major character in the movie as an alien. And yes, C-3PO and R2-D2 were in it as droids. But even in Empire, there really weren't a lot of aliens. There weren't really that many droids. He had finally made enough money that Return of the Jedi, because at that point he decided, okay, originally it wasn't even a trilogy. It was just going to be a bunch of films. And then he said, okay, I want to do other things. Let's end this in a trilogy. And so Lucas went all out and added incredible aliens. Jabba the Hutt first really appeared in Return of the Jedi. All the aliens in Jabba's palace, the Ewoks, all the droids, all the different spaceships we saw. Lucas went all out in Return of the Jedi. And since then, the aliens and droids, I think, really are an incredible part of this series. I say what you want to about
I will.
Jar Jar. But the one thing Jar Jar isn't is Jar Jar wasn't a guy in a mask. It was something completely alien. Saboba from the prequels. I loved that design. That was not a guy in a mask. That was a truly alien. And I have missed it. I've heard somebody else describe the show as we went from a Star Wars universe where humans were part of the menagerie of the universe to a universe where it really feels like it's a human being universe with a few aliens here and there. And so I have missed it. Tony Gilroy, in interviews I've seen, kind of has acknowledged that this almost has been too many humans. I think you could argue against this by saying that by having so many characters, and every character does have to have a bit of emotional heft. I mean, even Brazos here in this episode, he's got to give comfort to a droid. He's got to show the pain on his face when he sees what's happening to his planet of Ferrix and his friends like Bix and Maarva. So it does make a lot of sense to have humans in all these roles. But that said, I think you could have, in some of the other roles, which didn't have to carry so much emotion, I think you could have had a bunch of great aliens. The Mandalorian has a bunch of great aliens. Say what you want to about the Book of Boba Fett, which had some great moments and also some lackluster storylines. The Gamorrean guards in that always added fun. Like the giant Wookiee, remember Black Chrysanthemum, how much fun he added and how much it felt like Star Wars. So for me, it's been a really good show. How could it be even better? To me, it could be even better by giving us some of those aliens, giving us some of those droids. So that is my platform. That is how I hope to win the puck. Listeners, once again, if you agree with me, at @PHQ on Twitter and Instagram. Catfish, this is, I'm just stating my opinion, so I don't know if there's a opposite side to argue, but what are your
There is.
Okay.
Well, my thoughts are this, and it's actually kind of great because you in the end kind of got to my main point about a lot of the aliens and robots that we've seen when you use the word fun. Even the Gamorrean guards, in the end, they were a funny bit. They weren't scary. They were funny. Right. Jar Jar, no matter what kind of taste, whether his character exhibited, the writing and the depiction of his character in poor taste, also funny. Mm-hmm. Okay, Ewoks, cute. Yoda, cute. R2-D2, C-3PO, funny. Mm-hmm. Most of these things most of the aliens and the robots have been used for humor. And even tonight, we did have some with the Narkinians.
Right.
Still humor. And I feel like there's been just the right amount, a dose of that for what this show is trying to do. And maybe Star Wars could get to a place where they don't use all their robots and aliens for humor. Mm-hmm. But for aliens and robots in the Star Wars universe, maybe 5% of them aren't supposed to be funny. Maybe 10% of them aren't supposed to be funny. And so for this show, I mean, nobody loves Grogu more than I do. But, you see Grogu and you're like, oh, this show does not take place in an awe world. So for this show, I think it's been appropriate.
Wonderful, incorrect response. Listeners, what do you think? I thought, how do we ever get serious with being such silly guys we are? But I think you make good points, Catfish, almost as good as mine. So listeners, at Double PHQ on Twitter and Instagram, Facebook. Hey, if you still have Facebook, Facebook.com/Double PHQ. YouTube, give us a like. Boy, we always need likes. Give us a comment down below. Give
us a like and a comment down below. Okay, Bubba, here we go. Andor, what's that secret you're keeping? What question do you want answered in the next episode that you asked yourself in this episode, or what do you need explained to you about this episode? Bubba, I'm going to go light tonight. We've had a lot of serious conversation. So my question is this. Was my man Tubes falsely accused, or is he really Luthen's man?
He was totally falsely accused.
All right, okay. I mean, I could see Luthen having somebody there, but yeah, it feels like Tubes. Also, feels like Tubes was the wrong guy to accuse. Don't accuse the guy with the gun. All right, but what secret did you think Andor was keeping tonight?
Well, I always do this. I apologize. I always ruin my answer. I need to know how Syril's going to screw this up next week. I
love it.
That he's going to go to Ferrix and he's going to somehow help Andor escape. This is going to be absolutely ridiculous, but I can't wait. Listeners, what questions do you have as we wait for the final episode 12? This is incredible. 12 episodes, Catfish. How is this possible?
Well, I know it's made possible. The PBS say it's possible, made through the support by viewers like you. But this podcast is made possible, and the only point that it exists is because of our loyal listeners. And we got some feedback on Twitter regarding this very episode. Sean Gregan at HeyRef, our man on the scene there at the Beach Planet, says, wow, what an incredible episode. I've got to give it 9.5 out of 10 double Bs.
Wait, double Bs?
Bereaved B2 emos.
Oh, man.
So good. Tears and cheers this week. Pathos on Ferrix. Adrenaline rush with Luthen, and relief that the cleaner hasn't taken Cassian's loot.
They never, if you want to hide stuff, always at the top hidden area of a shower. That's the best place to hide it. Okay, 9.5. That's higher than you, Catfish. Whoa.
Good job.
We were both a bit tough on episode 10. We love hearing from listeners who disagree with us and love the episode. A true member of Cassian's crew is Camille, who's at Harley Camille on Twitter, talking about episode 10. She called it the best one yet. Oh, I'm a teacher, but I can't think of a good alliteration for my 10 out of 10. That's perfectly fine. Also,
oh man, I'm gonna give double A to Camille.
Double A.
Yeah, A minus for alliteration.
Oh, brother, here we go.
That's generous on a curve.
Now, Camille does point out that the safety officer at the prison should be fired. No life vests anywhere. Exactly right. It was the Titanic there with no lifeboats either.
And Laura McMillian at Meso Cat says Andy Serkis' acting in this episode of Andor, talking about episode 10, was amazing. Note the tears in his eyes as he made his speech. To see Kino left behind broke my heart. Something I found amusing is how the prison guard who made the announcement sounded so intimidating over the comm system, but in reality, his voice was tiny and high. Now, Laura tweeted that after we'd recorded the episode, but before we released it. So Laura and I are on the same page.
Don't do that to Laura. She's a great. Don't.
I apologize profusely, Laura.
Now on YouTube, we always say if you're on YouTube, we love those comments. And a good person we love hearing from on YouTube is Ronald, who wrote, "Poor Andy Serkis. That moment when he's free and yet not quite. Bittersweet irony. There are no good guys versus bad guys in an intergalactic rebellion. Luthen is just the other side of the coin. I really love the show because it shows how the Empire benefits very, very ambitious individuals, some of which come from modest upbringing." I think he's talking almost about maybe Dedra or our boy Syril. "Let's acknowledge the fact that the Empire does come back after all of this as the First Order, which makes Forrest Whitaker's words prophetic, that all these factions end up fighting each other anyways, even after a galactic empire is toppled." Whoa, Ronald, all our listeners so smart.
That is awesome, Ronald. And yet, Ronald, as much as I love that, I love this feedback. Better bots on if Luthen is a good bad guy or a bad good guy. Quotes another great quote from a movie. He says, "Good, bad, I'm the guy with the gun." Ash Williams. Oh my God.
Bots, if you only knew how Catfish loves those evil bad movies.
Oh my God. Oh hell yes. Army of Darkness, my man.
Hey, Double B, Blue Notes Basketball 365 on YouTube said, "I'm waiting for Luthen to break out the mask of Mandalore. LOL. Luthen is the man. He's this was our question last week.
Here we go. Yep.
Blue Notes Basketball said, "Luthen is the man. He's a bad good guy." He thinks Luthen is a former gray Jedi, a paladin. He's a good guy, and he thinks Luthen will make it to season 2. Guaranteed. Oh, but he says, "I too missed Syril and Dedra in the last episode. Those lovebirds." Oh, wonderful feedback. God. I love it.
All right, and we got some face back on episode 10. Dan Hickling says, "I give this one 8 triple Ps."
Wait, triple Ps?
Prison plumbing problems. It was a little light without pitiful Perrin, skulking Syril, and barely any driven Dedra. But their absence was offset by the introduction of the frightened father, Lonnie, and deal-making dad, Davo. Love it.
Dan is better at alliteration than we are. Dan, this is really good. I love pitiful Perrin, sulking Syril, and driven Dedra. This is Dan.
He's also better than Camille. I'm sorry, Camille. I got to call you out.
Hey, now
we got some Apple Podcast reviews. That's amazing. I love it.
We need them. We need them. Now, the first one is a mixed review, and hey, that's fine. We always ask for 5 stars, but really we just want any review. And here's a 3-star review from Maddie Strumper, who wrote a pretty good listen. Oh, thank you so much. They say we have great discussion. Oh, thank you so much. I'm tired of the alliterations, however. Okay, Maddie.
Oh, and there was a face palm. Oh my God, a face palm. All right, Bubba, listen.
Wow, saying we have great discussion. Thank you so much. I hope we do.
Maddie, thank you. We'll take any stars. But also, we'll also take 5 stars we got from Rainer3605. Always a double P.
Whoa.
The Karn of podcasts is a double P.
Double P.
Perfect podcast. You'll instantly become a double L.
Wait, double L?
Loyal listener. Bubba and Catfish never lead you astray. If you love to laugh or just want to love life, you'll love this podcast. You will also love alliteration. Or if you hate it, I think you'll give it 3 stars.
Oh, man, the Karn of podcast is pretty cool. I do like that title. Thank you so much.
All right, and in the UK store, we got 5-star from Scott Newcomb. Scott Newcomb 07. More awesome content. Star Wars fans, give this podcast a listen. You can get an enjoyable rundown of each episode from Bubba and Catfish with the usual great humor. And I'm so glad this is from UK because it's the fancy humor with HUMOUR that long-term listeners like myself love and keep coming back for. I always enjoy and appreciate these podcasts. Keep up the awesome work, guys, and thank you. That is awesome.
Thank you so much, Scott. Whoa, we have one episode left in this 12-episode season. I can't believe it.
Love it.
Bubba. Yeah.
Bubba, we just read a lot of feedback from our listeners, and we talked about this on our previous podcast for House of the Dragon. But what we haven't been telling listeners for this podcast is that I've got some awesome T-shirts, Star Wars team T-shirts. They're Mandalorian themed, but you will still love them, that we will give out to 2 lucky listeners next week. Oh, my goodness. I'm going to mail it out with my own dang money.
Whoa. Also next week, we're going to do the thing that I can't believe we're going to try to do, where we're going to rate every Star Wars movie and every Star Wars TV show, including the infamous Star Wars Holiday Special, in a giant ranking that will break the internet. We always say, who cares about anything we say, really? But who especially cares about our rankings? But because Catfish was so cruel to me, not only have I ranked the movies and the episode and the series in my ranking, but I've gone through. Now, I haven't done this part yet, but I've gone through to each TV series and I've ranked, okay, what is the order of the episodes that I would do? So I was like, okay, on Mandalorian, my favorite episode is 14, and then maybe 16 to 12. It is incredible how much thought went into this. So
this is horrible. Now, so next week you'll do the thing where you actually move the individual episodes around, right? So like it might be like
how long that podcast
Revenge of the Sith, and then the Mandalorian 14,
Episode 14,
then Return of the Jedi, then Mandalorian 12. Yeah, like that.
We might have to make that, because that'd be way too long, Catfish. We may have to make that like a special Christmas episode of the Parsec Passion.
Well, that's all right, Bubba, because my ranking is not gonna have anywhere near the thought of yours, so I can just do mine and then sign off, and you can do another hour of a podcast.
Well, how about this? What's been your favorite episode of Andor so far? I think I am going to give it to episode 6, the Aldhani heist, even though there are many good ones. For some reason, I think I am going to give it to the Aldhani heist, episode 6.
Well, I have a horrible memory, but I believe there was one after 6 that I gave a 10 to.
Oh, yeah.
There's one I gave a 10 to that I don't think I've ever given.
There are good ones.
I think only one.
There are good ones.
Only one, so I'll have to look it over. All right, Bubba. Well, oh my goodness, we've got only one episode left of this amazing show. So come back and join us for the final episode where Bubba will rank a whole bunch of Star Wars stuff, and we will give out some prizes. So join us next week on
Parsec Passion. All right, so every episode with the client is at the top, then Empire Strikes Back.